Hi, everyone. I'm Ian King. Welcome back to the NSMA award winner interviews. I'm joined by the 2021 Oklahoma Sportswriter of the Year, Guerin Emig. Guerin, how are you today?
Good, Ian. Good to be with you, man.
Thank you so much for joining me. The first question I wanted to ask is the sports industry can be a pretty difficult industry to enter. So, how did you get your start in the sports industry as a sports writer?
Well, it was actually something I got into because I wanted to enjoy my work, and I'm a sports fanatic. And so I thought I'd better go into something that allows me to, if I'm gonna work long hours for not a whole lot of money, might as well enjoy it. And so actually, I started in sports broadcasting. I went to the University of Kansas and got a journalism degree, but focused on broadcast. Did a lot of radio for a number of years before switching over to print. Oh boy, 1998, I think it was. So I've been at the print game for almost 25 years now, and I've enjoyed that almost as much as sports. But that's the main that was the main sort of launch point for me.
Definitely a good industry to be in, and you're very lucky that you get a career in the sports writing industry. Not only that, this is your second time winning an award from the National Sports Media Association, the Oklahoma Sportswriter of the Year. Does this second time winning the award feel any different to you than the first one did?
Oh, it's nice. It's always nice to be recognized. Yeah. So I mean that's cool, and I love what the organization is all about. I don't know if anyone in the business works to win awards. I hope that's not the case anyway. It's okay to be proud of your work, and if you have a passion for it, if you enjoy it and you do it thoroughly and properly, then it's what the athletes always tell us: the awards will take care of themselves. It's not that much different in our industry as well. And so I'm honored and humbled, there's no doubt, don't get me wrong, but I don't go into a column or a long form piece for the Tulsa World thinking, oh, this one might get me recognized, that kind of thing. And so my feelings about that haven't changed since the first time I won the award, or really since I started writing.
It's a really good way to look at it. Obviously, Oklahoma is a state packed full of really, really good college sports. Do you have a favorite season of a particular team that you've enjoyed covering during your career?
Well, football is just being Oklahoma. If my editors had their way, I'd write about football, 95% of the time. Oklahoma football, maybe 75% of the time, because of the tradition and readership, honestly, that comes with writing about the Sooners. So you're sort of ingrained into that culture when you write in Oklahoma or broadcast in this state. Priorities being what they are. We're coming up on spring sports season. You like to think you could sort of take a break from the football grind, but that just doesn't happen. The Sooners are having, as is Oklahoma State, the Cowboys are both having their scrimmages Saturday, and we know that whatever we write from those two events are going to be well read and hopefully well received. Even what we used to think is vacation time in May and June, before the football teams start thinking about reporting back from preseason camp, even those calendar dates are taken with football topics, because guys are transferring more than ever. You always have recruiting. This, of course, is a machine that just hums along 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And then there's the matter of Big 12 conference meetings, and how interesting those might be this June, with what happened last summer with Oklahoma and Texas deciding that it's enough of the Big 12, let's go to the SEC. And so football, what I'm saying is football is probably my most enjoyable sport, because I know that a lot of folks are going to consume what I have to say in the columns. My favorite sport to write about is basketball, honestly, because you get to know the coaches and players better. There's fewer of them. And so you can build some trust, some relationships, some sources to write more personal and layered stories. And that is hard to do when you're on top of a football team that's 100 guys deep, anymore 15 coaches deep. And the walls that the coaches put up between you and the program seem to get higher every year.
You definitely have some fantastic football and basketball players coming through the state of Oklahoma. Do you have a favorite player that you've gotten to write about or get to know throughout your career?
Well, not a favorite, some favorites. I loved writing about Buddy Hield, the basketball player who was consensus, I think it was a near consensus. I think he got all but one or two National Player of the Year in 2016, I believe it was. Buddy was just a really genuine dude. As I said, it's easier to get to know basketball players. And the good thing about covering Lon Kruger for the number of years that I did was that he tended to get really good guys, not just talented players, but interesting and willing interviews. And Buddy was certainly of that ilk. Football wise, it's going to sound weird because when you bring up Baker Mayfield, there is a dimension of we've seen Baker carry on, right? I mean, he did that at OU. He's doing that in the NFL. He's sort of an acquired taste, I guess is the way I'd put it kindly. Well, when you're writing about Mayfield, like I was, and the guys on the OU beat were for 3 years, we all found him fascinating because he was such a willing talker. Not everything that he said, he probably should have said, but you don't often get 20 to 22-year-old college guys to open up, and Mayfield was sort of an open book. And so I really, as controversial as this is going to come off, I actually did enjoy covering Mayfield when he was at Oklahoma.
Obviously, Baker seems like a great guy, definitely a character in the sports world. Talking about Oklahoma football, the elephant in the room, I'd like to ask you a little bit about what covering Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma for USC was like, and what you think about Brent Venables coming in, and what was that like covering it as a sports writer perspective?
Well, it was sort of a high, because you always want to write about big stories, and that was about as big. Well, we had two of them really in the course of 4 months. First, Oklahoma and Texas decided to go to the Big 12. I think I wrote about that for 3 weeks straight, uninterrupted. And then Riley drops the bomb the day after the Bedlam game about USC. And it's unfortunate that caught so many of us off guard. That was a story that sort of came out of nowhere nationally, and then it was up to sort of the local writers, and not just in Tulsa, but down the turnpike in Oklahoma City to play initially just a little bit of catch up. But then after doing so, it was a really layered, nuanced story to write about. And then you didn't just try to figure out why USC, why now, but you try to dig into, how deep how far back did it go? How deep did it dig into Oklahoma's season? They won 11 games, but they never looked like an 11-win team. And everyone throughout the course of that season was trying to figure out what was going on. And so you figured if that was a pretty big crumb that Riley left, on November 28th, were there others? That sort of thing. So it was a lot of work for a very short period of time. It was stressful, but that's why you do this, right? You do it for stories of that magnitude. As far as Venables is concerned, Ian, I covered him when I was on the OU beat before I became a columnist, and he was the co-defensive coordinator for 10 years under Bob Stoops. And my relationship with Venables was as a beat writer, not as a columnist. And I really enjoyed that relationship because, again, he was more of an open book. He said things on and off the record to guys he could trust. I was one of the writers that he trusted. And so we were able to really get good stories out of him. And in his telling us things that other coaches might not, we were able to do our jobs better. And I think Venables recognized sort of the give and take in that relationship. I hope that continues now that he's a head coach for the first time. He's been a lot of fun to cover. His energy, as they say, is infectious. It's a little bit of a high just to be in the same room with him right now. I wonder if he'll continue, right? If he'll continue to be that open as a head coach. Right now, everything's great because he hasn't lost a game yet. So we'll see how he is if the Sooners go to Nebraska next September and somehow lose to the Huskers, or if he has his first disciplinary action with a player. There's some kind of a controversy. It's up the road. He knows something like that's going to happen. So is Venables going to be that cooperative from a standpoint of media coverage? I can't wait to find out.
Definitely sounds like it was a chaotic time to be a sports writer in the state of Oklahoma. My last question for you, Guerin, can you talk to me a little bit about a piece of advice that you would have for an aspiring sportscaster or sports writer?
Read, whether you're on the air or writing or blogging or anything else that guys are doing right now, TikToking. I don't care. You should read as much as you can. Because the more you read, the more informed you are. And of course, I'm going to caveat that with make sure that you're getting it from informed sources and legitimate information outlets. But I trust that anyone that's pursuing journalism knows the difference between what's real and what isn't, around the net and all. So that's the first thing I would say. The next is don't be afraid to sort of enter the arena. I gave a talk at Oklahoma State to a bunch of sports writers with the Ocali, their student newspaper, about 6 weeks ago. And one of the things I told them was, when you're in an interview setting, because I'm sure it's this way at Wake Forest as well, you have as much access to the athletes and coaches as those who've been doing it for 20 to 30 years. Don't be intimidated by that fact, and make sure that your voice is heard in that arena. Make sure you're asking questions of football, basketball, soccer coaches, whoever it is, because if you don't, you can't write, again, informed stories, or you're getting, you're getting the information to base your material from sources outside your control. And that's fine. Everyone does that to an extent. There are times you can't help but do that. But the more you are able to present a voice in whatever forum you're in, broadcast or print, no matter what age you are, then the better off you're going to be, because you're going to develop confidence, and you're going to develop respect within the room. And that's respect is just about everything when it comes to this job, respect in getting the story right.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic piece of advice that aspiring sportscasters and sports writers take into heart. Thank you again, Guerin, for joining me today. Guerin Emig, everyone, your Oklahoma 2021 Sports Writer of the Year. Congratulations again, and thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.